Afternoon and welcome to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station, AM 1220 and 98.1 FN. This, of course, is your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, back for another opportunity to talk about the two things we're not supposed to talk about in public, without getting a rock thrown at us, of course: politics and religion. We're going to talk about them both today and have a good time. Let me give you a couple of shameless plugs real quick here. June 28th, just a couple of weeks away, is our Stars and Stripes concert at 5 p.m. at the Freedom's Way Baptist Church. This is a free event open to the community. The Santa Clarita Valley Concert Band will be performing and giving us about an hour set of patriotic music. So again, June 28th, Stars and Stripes concert. You can check us out at freedomswaybaptistchurch.org, and you can see there on the banner all the information you might need for our Stars and Stripes concert. Also, in just a bit, we'll provide an update with the ICE protests that are going on. I think they're still ongoing, even though there was some sort of, what do they call that again? Where they tell you not to go anywhere after a certain time?
Curfew.
A curfew, that's right. I forgot what that's like. I'm not a teenager anymore. But there was a curfew last night, but Jonathan Hatami, District Attorney Jonathan Hatami, Deputy District Attorney Jonathan Hatami, will be calling in around 2:50 or so and giving us a brief update as to what's going on. But more on that in just a bit. My guest today is someone that I've had limited interaction with over the last couple of years, but we've been able to run into each other at certain events. I think the last time I saw you was at the Hart School Board when everything hit the fan there at the auditorium. But my guest today is Red State contributor Matt Funicello. Again, I first met Matt when he was spearheading something called Operation Red Harvest.
Yeah, that's correct.
Which was about ballot harvesting here for the right. But that was when Matt was a registered Republican. Matt has recently wrote an article for Red State detailing his political journey from the GOP, the Grand Old Party, to the Ron Paul revolution of libertarianism. So, Matt Funicello, welcome to Politics in the Pulpit.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
Matt, let's just clear it right now. You are not any relation to Annette Funicello.
Only if it gets me something.
Maybe royalties from the Mickey Mouse Club, right?
It's possible, yeah.
Okay. So would you detail for our listeners when you came to this notion, I'm done with the GOP, and I think I'm going to identify as a libertarian, and forgive me for saying identify because I know that's a big buzzword.
No,
I don't want to trigger anybody on the radio, so tell us about that, Matt.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a long time coming, several years. Like we've talked about before, I have always been a constitutional conservative. Still am a constitutional conservative, first and foremost. And what I mean by that is I've always looked towards any policy or possible legislation introduced or passed. Is it constitutional? Does it violate my rights? Et cetera, et cetera. And I think the breaking point for me came just recently in the past couple of months, only because I've seen time and time again when Republicans take control, of the House and the Senate, and we get the trifecta of the White House, that nothing gets done, or at least nothing of substance gets done. And then, on the opposite token of that, stuff gets, bills get proposed or legislation gets proposed that go completely against what the Constitution allows. Mm-hmm. And I saw that one too many times, and I was done with it.
Yeah. So my only thought about the Libertarian Party is it's a relatively new party. I think it's been around since 1971, if I'm not mistaken, right around that time. Roughly. Would you say this is a fair characterization that the Libertarian Party was born out of some of the rebelliousness of the 1960s?
Yeah, I would say that, but it also, I think there's a really heavy component of, when you talk about the Libertarian Party as a monolith, right, which it's not, you have a liberal wing and you have a conservative wing, just as the Democrats have a conservative wing and a liberal wing. One's bigger than the other, but same thing for the Republican Party. But yes, to your point, I think it was built out of the rebelliousness of the, the 60s and the 70s and everything like that. But the principles of those movements kind of still remain the same.
Yeah.
In a grand speak.
Well, we have the last Libertarian candidate to run was, of course, Chase Oliver. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know a whole bunch about him until President Trump addressed the Libertarian Party during their convention and basically appealed to them for their vote. But we know that the Libertarians chose Chase Oliver, and he got 0.42% of the national vote, which basically comes up to about 635,000 votes nationally. How does the Libertarian Party break away from this bifurcated system of Republican and Democrat, and how can they break out in a national way to become a viable third party choice?
I think this is coming from an outsider looking in from before rather than an insider now. My view of the Libertarian Party historically has been, y'all are so inconsistent. You have one statement over here and then one statement over here, and there's no bridge between the two. And when they put a candidate in front of the national eye, I look at not Chase Oliver, but the previous one, Johnson. What's his name?
Mike Johnson?
Wow.
Gary Johnson.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
Gary Johnson. There you go. And dude, I got no problem with you smoking weed, but don't do it right before your interview because it really came out. That right there, that kind of behavior to me, and I hold the same behavior towards any politician, Republican and Democrat. If you can't handle yourself in public and get a coherent message in a rational way of speaking, you've lost my vote. And I don't know, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if the Libertarian Party can actually pull out of that rut, only because their viewpoints are a very broad spectrum. The Democrats and the Republicans have a very narrow set of principles, and there's no deviation. The Libertarian Party allows for deviation. They allow for free thinking and, movement. Their core message, and I wish everybody would get on this train, is we want individual liberty to the very nth degree. I don't want a big government. I want a tiny government, and I want my own liberty. That's the whole point behind the Libertarian Party is liberty. And that's one thing I think the Democrats and the Republicans fail to understand. And that's part of the reason why I left the Republican Party is you fail to understand that. One of the things that is a hot topic issue for me is I'm a gun guy. I love guns. You know what I mean?
If you're watching on video, Matt looks nothing like a gun owner.
Nothing at all. You would think of golf clubs only. No, but it's very clear to me that I have on one party you have the Democrats who actively try and undermine the Second Amendment as much as they possibly can and gaslight anybody into thinking that they support it. Then you have the Republican Party who voices their support for the Second Amendment, but they fail to act every single time. Case in point, the last couple months, with this big beautiful bill. Before it became the big beautiful bill, there was in the House Ways and Means Committee, and pro-gun Republicans were like, "Hey, we want to repeal the NFA. If we can't get that, I want to take SBR, short barrel rifles, and suppressors off the NFA," and it failed because Republicans let it fail. And I took that as a personal insult because every single Republican runs on, I support Trump.
Yep.
The first time. Yep. I support, yeah, absolutely. When he wins, gets in the White House, what does he do? Bam, bump stocks by executive fiat. Whoa, hey, I thought you were pro-gun. You can't be pro-gun and ban something about guns. I'm a purist when it comes to that. I should be able to own anything that I can afford. Mm-hmm. Period. End of statement. Republicans don't believe that. They say they do, but they don't because they don't act on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, when the first time I ever came to any familiarity of the Libertarian Party when I was younger was when Ron Paul started what became known as the Ron Paul Revolution.
Right.
I still remember the billboards and some of the bumper stickers that people were putting on the back of their cars at the time. And to be honest with you, I didn't know much about the Libertarian Party other than that brief introduction with Ron Paul. Now we've got his son, Rand Paul, who, of course, ran as a Republican but has libertarian leanings, no doubt. And then, of course, in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, Justin Amash ended up winning, and I believe he ran as a Republican, but it was a libertarian essentially. And I guess to some extent, there might be a couple others in there as well. We were just talking about Gary Johnson. who ran in 2016 as a Libertarian. If I'm not mistaken, he was the governor of New Mexico.
He was.
So Libertarians have
They-
had a national platform, but for some reason, as you said earlier, they're going to be unable to break out from this bifurcated political system because of some of their, let's just put it this way, eccentricities?
Yeah, it's that, but also, I mean, let's be perfectly clear. This is a two-party system. Everybody agrees that it's a two-party system. Even libertarians agree. They don't like the fact that it's a two-party system, but that's it. You have the two biggest and most powerful political parties the country has ever seen, and for the foreseeable future, they're never going to go away. You know, you have the Libertarian Party, you have all these other, you know, the Green Party and, you know, this party, but the Libertarian is the biggest out of all the other ones over there. I'm not trying to throw shade at any, well, maybe the Green Party, but you get my
It's
point.
not that easy being green.
Yeah. But yeah.
So let me ask you this question, Matt. One of the things that kind of stuck in your mind as you made your transition from the GOP, the Grand Old Party, to the Libertarian Party, was in this notion that you had to be lock, stock, and barrel behind the Republican Party and its candidate, and the same thing you saw with the Democrats as well. There could be no deviation, there could be no critique, no criticism, and any criticism or critique was taken as you being disloyal.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you could not have a conversation within your echo chamber
Yeah.
without you being seen as
A traitor.
a
or
traitor.
something. Yeah.
So you wrote this article for Red State, which, of course, by the way, if you're on Red State and you're not a VIP member, you ought to be a VIP member.
100%.
Even if you go down to the nominal one for $4 or whatever that is. But that's the way you're going to be able to read Matt's article on Red State. But you'd mentioned this notion of allegiances.
Mm-hmm.
We on the Republican side say that the Democrats will not say anything bad about their guy, even if we just found out that Joe Biden's been ill
It's
in
a
the last 4
case in
years.
point.
They're still going to just
Case in point.
keep talking about it like it's never happened.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, we've got guys on our side that say that Trump can do no wrong.
Yep.
But I have always said that if you're a Republican, you can criticize your own and should be able to.
Absolutely.
In order for that individual to be better.
Yes, 100%. I have always subscribed to that, and that was one of my biggest disappointments about, and one of the main reasons why I left the Republican Party is I was so sick and tired of not being able to criticize Trump or any, you know, Republican elected leader without major pushback. Like, oh, this is, you know, you're going to cause them to lose the election. I'm like, well, maybe they need to lose the election. I don't hold my allegiance to the party. I don't hold my allegiance to the person. It's to the Constitution. I had the same look. It's well known that I was vehemently against Suzette Valadares to run for Senate. I voted against her endorsement when I was with LAGOP. When I had a vote, I was against it. She had the worst voting record for any Republican in the state as in the state assembly. The worst. It was way liberal. No, I'm not going to vote for you again. Now, in the Senate, she's doing actually a pretty good job. I'll give her that. But
Maybe she's learned a lesson from the assembly.
Quite possibly, but that's my point. I should be able to criticize a candidate or a politician for their failures and their successes in order to make them a better person or a better politician. Because I hate what the word politician has become today. You should not idolize politicians at all. And I find that to be very prevalent on the left and the right, especially when it comes to Trump. I don't idolize him at all. Matter of fact, I voted for him, but I can't stand that guy. I just can't. I don't like the way he talks. Whatever. But
That's a Queens thing.
Yeah, whatever. I'm Italian. My whole family's from New York. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, look, I should be able to criticize that guy without you snapping and losing your mind at me, because I don't want to live in an echo chamber. It's just that simple. I don't see the problem in that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what happens too within the two-party system is that fealty to the candidate. It's almost a religious dogma, right?
Yeah.
I've often said, and this is just me as a pastor talking, If there is no God above the state becomes God. And if there is no moral compass, then a politician will take the place of a deity. And I definitely think that has happened with both parties. There is no doubt about it. Because let's just take, for instance, the whole Joe Biden thing. I mean, we all saw the cognitive decline with our own two eyes.
Yep.
We saw him falling on the stage there in Colorado Springs.
Falling a lot.
We saw him falling up and down the steps going up to Air Force One.
Up and down.
Up and down, yes. We heard the slurs, we heard all this, and we were just told incessantly by the legacy media, he has a speech impediment, you know, that he's had it for a long time. And now Jake Tapper, one of the greatest proponents for defending Biden for the last 4 years, is now reaping the benefits of royalties.
Of his participation.
And also Corinne Jean-Pierre.
Yeah, that was actually my third article this year. I wrote on that. The ultimate American betrayal was that.
Would you say, Matt, that this is probably one of the greatest political scandals of our time?
In that article I expressed, I think it's the biggest and greatest scandal in my lifetime, at least. And the reason why I say that is because you had the entire government and media lockstep. You're the problem. He's fine. Don't mind him. It's like, that Frank Drebin and Police Squad. You're like, nothing to see here, and the whole building's on fire. That's what they were doing.
That was my favorite meme on Facebook during the riots of 2020.
It still is. It still applies. But you get my point. It's like, you cannot tell me with a straight face that he's fine. That he was fine for 4 years. I have beachfront property in 29 Palms I could sell you, if that's the case.
I'd like to visit that beachfront property.
I don't think you do.
when we come back here on Politics of the Pulpit, we'll talk to Matt Funicello, not only from his journey from the GOP to the Libertarian Party, but also talk a little bit about the current status of things in Los Angeles today and what a libertarian might do in response to the last 4 days as opposed to how the Democrats have responded when we come back here on Politics in the Pulpit. All right, we're back here on Politics in the Pulpit, here on your hometown station, KHTS AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. We are talking to Matt Funicello, who is also a Red State contributor. He has recently written an article detailing his political journey from the GOP to the Libertarian Party. He has received a little bit
Un poquito.
Of hate from the Republicans. And that's a shame because I've always said that we should be able to critique our own side without our own side losing their political minds. But again, it shows you that in both sides of the political spectrum here, this bifurcated system that we have, the two-party system, that there's just a little too much fealty towards the candidate that they can't see beyond that. I want to turn our attention, Matt, to the current situation that's just happening 30 miles to our south here in Los Angeles City. The last 4 or 5 days, we've had, actually it started Friday with the ICE raids in Paramount, certain parts of Whittier, and then here up in the Los Angeles area. And all of a sudden, starting Saturday, things started getting really, really, really nuts out there. We had guys throwing bricks at the ICE officers as well as our police officers. We've had, cop cars getting set on fire. We've had buildings being spray painted with all kinds of interesting terminology on there. Let's say that Mayor Bass was not a Democrat. Let's say that Gavin Newsom was not a Democrat. How would a libertarian, as either governor and or mayor, respond to the situation in your perspective?
So, like I mentioned earlier, just because you're a libertarian, you can still have liberal libertarians and conservative libertarians. This is where I kind of stray from the Libertarian Party a little bit. Obviously being a former deputy sheriff too.
And of course, a Marine.
Yeah, and a Marine.
And thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's a very nuanced situation. On one side, as a libertarian, you would say, I don't want the National Guard, I don't want the military, I don't want the police, you need to demilitarize them all, all that stuff, which they do, preach for. And again, I disagree with that. To a certain extent, I disagree with it. But on that same token, if you have riots in the street, what are you supposed to do with that? You need to take control of your city, your state, and all that stuff like that. So it's a very fine line of not suppressing people's constitutional right to protest, and then also protecting other people's civil liberties. Is, hey, I should be able to travel where and when I want without you blocking the road and threatening my life and my family's life. Liberty is at its core. Whose liberty is going to be suppressed when I take action, right? At this point, you kind of have to suppress certain liberties because you have to take, the curfew. You have to take control of your city. You have to take control of your municipality. But how do you do that, right? There is a way of thinking of how much force can I use, and how do I use that force to enforce the rules that I'm trying to get.
Yeah.
And again, it's a very fine line. I don't think there's a right answer as far as a libertarian goes or a conservative.
Well, let me ask you this question, Matt. Do you think it took Mayor Bass? Do you think it was too late to wait 4 days to finally implement a curfew?
I think that's being nice. She was pissing in the wind.
Yeah.
Look, your city was now. Los Angeles is a very large city.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the entire city was burning.
No.
Clearly was not.
Very clear, a few blocks.
Yeah. However, those few blocks were in the heart of L.A. The 101, that freeway was the hub of L.A. To get in and out and everything, that was affected. And you have street takeovers. You have people, throwing rocks, bottles, Molotov cocktails. They were opening fire. I saw a video, of people actually shooting at the police. So it's like you did this. You cannot blame Trump. Like, Trump instigated this. No, he didn't. It's all of the liberal policies of, hey, we're going to subvert the law. We're going to, whatever. And you let this ferment, and these are the fruits of your labor. You need to reap what you sow. This is nobody's fault but your own.
What would be the libertarian take on illegal immigration and a pathway to citizenship, and how would a libertarian approach that issue?
So as a libertarian, the federal government has sovereignty over our borders. They always should. You need to protect that's your job. Protect me. The federal government should be protecting me. If we have immigration laws, we have a border, enforce it. Protect me. Don't let people in. Don't subject me to a foreign invasion, right? Whatever it may be. Pathway to citizenship, that's fantastic. Make one. Stop talking about it. Again, my major criticism of the Republican Party. You guys have been talking about a broken system for years along with the Democrats. How many times have you tried to pass a bill to fix it in the last 10 years? I'm hearing crickets.
Crickets? Yeah.
I was told from in my early adult years, especially as a Marine, do what you say and say what you do. That's my biggest complaint with both parties, but specifically the party that I left. You do not do what you say. You don't. You give me empty promises and you say you're going to... Obamacare. Now, granted, Obamacare is unconstitutional, and I disagree with repeal and replace. The federal government should be not in healthcare at all. There shouldn't have been a replacement bill.
I can say amen to that.
Yeah. However, you had 10 years, excuse me, you had 10 years to come up with a plan.
And then John McCain.
Did you?
And then John McCain.
Even then, even after that, when Trump got elected, he had the House and the Senate the first time. What did you do? For 2 years, what did you do?
Nothing.
You passed a tax reform bill that didn't really affect the entire country, and you were touting that as your major achievement. You did the exact same thing that Obama did in his first 2 years. He got nothing done except for Obamacare.
Yeah. That
That's
was
it.
all of his political capital was spent on that.
Exactly. And Trump and the Republican Party spent all their political capital on a postcard tax bill. You didn't do anything for Second Amendment rights. You didn't do anything for the border. You didn't do anything for anything else. Not one. And again, I wrote in my article, the biggest expansion of the federal government came under a Republican president, Bush, with the Department of Homeland Security. And the biggest expansion of federal power with the Patriot Act. The very act that was used to spy on Trump. Everybody was saying this is going to be used for bad. Nah, we're good. We're good.
John Ashcroft assured us
Exactly.
it would never
it
be
would never
used
be
for
used
bad.
for bad. Oh, hey, look, the FISA courts went after Trump. And you're still defending it and you're still renewing it. Why? You know it's bad. Get rid of it. It violates my civil liberties. Get rid of it. They don't do it.
What does the mainstream libertarian think of President Trump? I know that he addressed the Libertarian Convention last year to boos, some jeers, and to some cheers.
I think he was right.
But what do they think?
As far as he's a sellout. You said to the Libertarian Party when you spoke to him, you wanted to reach out to him, you wanted to incorporate them into your government, and did you? No, you actually lambasted the two most libertarian-leaning Republicans as not knowing how government works with Tom Massey and Rand Paul. Excuse me? They know how government works way more than you because they've been sounding alarms for years. Say what you want about those two people, Paul and Massey, but they are men who stand on principle. Principle first, the Constitution. It seems to be a very lacking. What's the word I'm trying to? It's something that's lacking in the mainstream Republican Party that I've seen, and I've seen that repeatedly over the last 10 years. And I don't recognize the Republican Party that I was a part of when I first joined. I registered to vote when I was 18 in 2000, December of 18, or December 18th of 2000. I didn't actually get to vote until after I got out of the Marine Corps because I never got my absentee ballots. Even when I was stateside, I never got my ballots. I'm beginning to lose sight of the country that I fought for.
Would this be a fair characterization of a libertarian? Number one, individual liberty. That's the primary type of liberty, my liberty. Oppose government bureaucracy and taxes. Promotes private charity, toleration of diverse lifestyles, supports free markets, defends civil liberties. Trump is talking about not necessarily free markets, but fair markets. Can we say, just for the sake of our discussion here, that Trump, at least on the Republican side, is probably the closest to the libertarian perspective on free markets than, let's say, George W. Bush?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And would you also say that Trump is closer to a libertarian position when it comes to foreign wars and things of that nature, as opposed to maybe, let's say, George W. Bush?
Yeah.
Yeah. And would these be appeals to libertarians to maybe not have voted for Chase Oliver in 2024, but ended up voting for Trump?
I don't think so. And the reason why, and again, this is a criticism of the Libertarian Party, is because they're not a monolith and everybody is, I held this opinion on the Libertarian Party. I thought they were, for years, I thought you're a little too extreme with some of your, I think there should be some drug laws, like you shouldn't be able to sling rock cocaine and all that crap like that. Especially,
I think we can agree on that, Matt.
Especially on, as a former cop. However, I've changed. Hey, you want to smoke crack? Go by all means. Do what you want with your own body. Same thing. If I don't want to wear a seatbelt, I don't have to wear a seatbelt. It's my body, my choice, right?
I've always said if I want my body to fly out my windshield, that's my choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah,
my wife hates that.
It's extreme. It sounds extreme, but yeah, it's what I believe. Hey, if I truly believe in one's individual liberty, then believe in it. I should be able to do what I want within the constructs of the law. Right, and there are some good laws. Libertarians are not anarchists. There are good laws, but again, those laws need to come from the state, not the federal government.
If you had a chance, Matt Funicello, to create a Frankenstein libertarian presidential candidate for 2028, who would that libertarian Frankenstein candidate look like?
I think the ultimate ticket would be Massey and Paul.
Thomas Massey and Rand Paul.
Yeah.
And do you
because
think,
they can appeal to both the Republicans and the Libertarians.
Yeah. And do you think that there's a possibility that they might join up and maybe run in 2028?
I don't think so.
Or you think Rand's going to stay a Republican and basically stay
I think they
fealty
know
to the party?
Well, not that. I think they know, and I believe that they will be better served as checks to authoritarianism in the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
If they leave, then it leaves that vacant for, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Again, you need to be a politician needs to stand on principle in the Constitution. And when Democrats and Republicans, I say in my article, there's the party of big government and then the party of bigger government. The Republican Party cannot say that they're a party of small government, because they've expanded the federal government. They've made it more powerful. They haven't reduced taxes. They haven't eliminated taxes. They haven't eliminated any laws. They've passed more.
Yeah. You've been involved in Republican politics for a long time. Mm-hmm. You've held positions of power. Now you've taken this journey into the Libertarian Party. What is your plans, Matt, going forward? Even though you've taken a bit of a respite, but what are your plans going forward?
Right now, I don't know. There's still a lot of things that I need to do in my personal life that need my attention, mainly my family and everything like that. I'd like to, tiptoe back into politics if I can, but I don't know if I would do that on an official party level. I do like the fact that even when I was involved in party politics, I was more of an operator, not a candidate, and I like that. That gives me some anonymity, and not so much anonymity, but flexibility. Yeah, I should say. I would love to coordinate politics and everything like that, and coordinate movements. But when I was involved in politics, especially out here, I say it all the time. Getting Republicans to do anything is like herding cats. That's why Operation Red Harvest failed miserably, because nobody wanted to do it.
Yeah, just a minute ago, before we get to our break here, Matt, I want to ask a little bit and maybe push back slightly on this. You'd mentioned that in the Libertarian Party, there are virtually no limitations when it comes to diverse lifestyles. But I'm assuming from your answer about drug policy that there has to be some limitations,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So obviously there are diverse sexual lifestyles out there. But would libertarians be supportive of pedophilia, things of that nature? That's just silly talk. That would be a Republican saying.
There's limits to levels of insanity.
Oh, good.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. No.
All right.
No.
Good. Because obviously pedophilia right now is actually being pushed by certain elements of the Democratic Party.
Yep. It's disgusting.
And they're trying to normalize this. In fact, I saw a show the other day. I forget exactly what platform it was streaming on, but I was just surprised that it was actually streaming on this platform, and I'm surprised that nobody has called them and said, take this off, or I'm going to,
Unfortunately, it's gonna get a lot worse before it gets better.
This normalization of adult males liking small children.
Or adult females liking small children, yeah. Pedophiles go both ways, but predominantly it's men.
Yeah, because I would assume that, just like you said earlier, that there's a liberal side to the libertarians as well as a conservative side, that I think most people within the conservative libertarian party would say, yeah, this is something that we are not going to even touch with a 10-foot pole.
I don't think it's ever going to cross a threshold into a majority percentage or even a large percentage, but it's still going to remain a small percentage of the left or of that group.
Yeah.
To like try and normalize it, try and, whatever. Ultimately, it will fail, because I think the overwhelming majority of humanity, at least American humanity or Western humanity, thinks that pedophilia is just evil.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you completely. Quick prediction, Matt, before we go to our break. Does Trump and the Republicans hold the House and the Senate in 2026, or do they lose both?
At least lose one, if not both.
All right.
Historically speaking, that's what happens, but in this case, yeah.
All right. Matt Funicello, thank you so much for joining us today on Politics.
It was a pleasure.
I hope that our discussion was fruitful for those of you guys out there in Radio Land, and we'll have you on
Don't
again,
hate me
Matt.
because I'm beautiful.
Or a front man for the ZZ Top Band right here. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. When we come back, we're going to hear from Jonathan Hatami, give us a brief update. Excuse me. Whoa, I think I just had a stroke. I had a Fetterman moment right there. We'll hear from Jonathan Hatami, give us an update of what's going on with the LA riots when we come back. All right, we're back here for our final segment of Politics and the Pulpit. And we are going to be joined here in just a second with Deputy District Attorney Jonathan Hatami, who I believe is now on the line.
How are you?
Jonathan, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm not in Los Angeles. I'm actually 30 miles north of it, and I'm feeling good here in Santa Clarita. But what can you tell us of the last 4 days, Jonathan? What has your impression been of the mayor, of our governor, and what could have been done and what could have been done sooner?
So one of the biggest issues is the shutdown of the freeway. So I know, it's not here in Santa Clarita, but a lot of people commute. A lot of people commute from different cities to downtown LA. And, it's impacted a lot of people who need to go to work, people who have medical appointments, people who have issues they need to deal with. The freeways have been taken over, and they can't, use the freeways to get to places that they need to get to. It's not peaceful to be looting businesses, attacking the police, launching fireworks or Molotov cocktails at them, ramming, them with vehicles or motorcycles, lighting vehicles on fire, throwing rocks at them, spray painting or, damaging businesses and property. These things aren't peaceful, and they've been happening, all over downtown Los Angeles, in places where, the sheriff's department works, the DA's work, where people go to work, and, the government's operating on a day-to-day basis. And so it's really caused major problems for everybody. At the end of the day, the governor and the mayor are in charge of making sure all of us are safe, and they haven't done a good job in doing that. And so they really need to look inside themselves and, try to be, realize that a lot of people feel unsafe and are experiencing a lot of issues, especially also police officers and their families who they want to come home safe every day as well. We have a lot of police officers and law enforcement who lives out here in Santa Clarita who's working downtown LA and wants to come home to their families, and they want to be safe. So those things are important. I believe that the governor and the mayor have not done a good job. They're blaming everybody else instead of blaming the criminal who's doing these things, and they need to do a better job.
So obviously yesterday, Mayor Bass instituted a curfew. I would say that she was a day late and a dollar short, maybe more like 3 days late and a dollar short. But it seemed to work than the three previous nights. It seems as if that is going to continue tonight at 8 o'clock as well. Is your impression that the curfew is working, and do you think that violence is going to be toned down, or do you think it's going to ramp up? Because I have heard that there's supposed to be a national movement this coming weekend, basically opposing the 250th anniversary of the Army and the display of our armed forces might on Saturday, which a lot of the left thinks is basically a party for President Trump's birthday, which just happens to coincide with the Army's 250th birthday. So do you think the things in Los Angeles are going to subside, or do you think they're going to ramp up as we go into the weekend?
Well, they're probably going to ramp up. I know we're expecting some protesters actually here in Santa Clarita, I believe, on the weekend as well. And so, the problem is that peaceful protesting, and Pastor Cook, we all support peaceful protesting, but this isn't peaceful. These things aren't peaceful. And so that's really the problem. You don't institute curfews for peaceful protesting. And so what happens is a lot of individuals who are in charge, a lot of these elected leaders are not telling the truth. And, numerous individuals are causing major problems. And, not only attacking the police, but threatening others, causing damage, all over downtown LA. And, it could get worse. And that's part of the problem is we need to have strong leadership. We need to have leaders who have courage. At the end of the day, people are allowed to peacefully protest. That's why our country is so great, is we allow this to happen. However, it needs to be peaceful. And when it's not, your politics and your ideologies shouldn't dictate public safety. We all deserve to be safe, no matter what your political party is. And everybody should agree that looting, lighting things on fire, lighting cars on fire, taking over freeways, assaulting the police, throwing Molotov cocktails at them, defacing property is all illegal and should be dealt with, no matter what your political party is. And the problem is we have a lot of individuals out here who don't do that, who only care about politics. They don't really care about actually doing the right thing, and they care about pandering instead of moral courage. And so, we need to start actually enforcing these laws and making sure individuals don't do these things.
If you're just joining us here on Politics in the Pulpit, we're talking to Deputy District Attorney Jonathan Hatami. I want to ask you one final question, Jonathan. Why do you think the governor and or the mayor have such a reluctance to call in the National Guard or the Marines for that matter? Obviously, this was something that the federal government had to do. But why do you think the governor and or the mayor have such reluctance to do something like that?
Well, I think it's interesting because, Governor Newsom called in the National Guard in 2020 for COVID and in 2022. He wanted to shut innocent families in homes and not let us leave. And he wanted to shut down businesses. And so he called in the National Guard for that. But now he's against the National Guard when actually innocent people are being attacked, police are being attacked, and businesses are being shut down. Because here's the thing. In 2017, we passed the sanctuary law, and that's the politics of Newsom and Bass. And they would rather have people who are here illegally, who are committing serious crimes, and not be deported. And I think a lot of it has to do with our voting problems we have here in Los Angeles and in California. It's sad to say. And that's the problem. It's political. If you are here illegally, you need to be in your best behavior. And if you're here illegally and you're committing crimes, those individuals should be deported. I think most people agree with that. We shouldn't allow people to be re-victimized over and over again because of some political belief that people who are here illegally should not be deported. They should be. And so we're supposed to make the country and our community safer. And so I think that's the reason, Pastor Cook. I think they just don't care. It's their politics.
One last question. I fibbed a minute ago when I said one last question. I have actually now one last question, Jonathan. Do you think that just the visual of these individuals, these protesters, holding other nations' flags and destroying our flag, do you think just the PR of that is going to work against them with the American public?
Here's the thing. Being an honorable military veteran, also being a child of an immigrant, I love this country. My family loves this country. I think that's why most people want to come here, because this country is the best country. And it's sad to see people holding up other flags and then people burning the American flag. It hurts my heart. It's disappointing. And so, I think the visual is bad, but what's worse is that what they're doing. If you really want to be in this country and you really want to be part of this country, which we want, then you should support the country and what we're trying to do. Don't burn it. Don't wave other flags. Really embrace our country. Because why are you here then? Because that's the thing. We are the best country. That's why everybody wants to come here. So I respect that everybody wants to come here because we are the best. But then we need to treat our country like the best.
Absolutely. Jonathan Hatami, thank you so much for calling in today, and I want to wish you a happy Father's Day this weekend.
Well, happy Father's Day to you and all your listeners, Pastor Cook.
Thank you, sir.
Yourself. Be safe.
Appreciate it. You guys stay safe out there this weekend, and again, to all the fathers that are listening, happy Father's Day to you. And if you are in Santa Clarita on June 14th, this Saturday, there are some protests that are supposed to happen. So be safe out there. I know that McBean and Valencia always get some activity right there on that corner. It's called No Kings Nationwide Day of Defiance. This is not only happening here in Santa Clarita in the 27th Congressional District, but it's also supposed to happen nationwide. So don't fall for it, folks. Love your country. Get to church on Sunday if you go to church, And but love your country, and happy Father's Day to all of our fathers out there. So thank you so much for tuning in to Politics in the Pulpit. We'll catch you next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great day.